Almost 3 years ago now, I made a couple videos talking about a YouTuber whose house had been firebombed. The YouTuber's name is Friendly and he was very outspoken about corruption, calling out bad actors in the local government, and for all of this, his house was targeted in a firebombing. And actually, the fucking stooge that was in charge of this, the mysterious boogeyman, actually went for the double scoop on the firebombing. So they started by firebombing Friendly's neighbor, thinking that it was his house. Then when they realized they got the wrong house, he came back to firebomb Friendly's house. And luckily, no one died in this, but the intention was pretty clear, either to scare or kill Friendly's. And now, almost 3 years later, there is someone who has been arrested for this.
Some not-so-breaking news. One of the guys that firebombed my house back in 2022 has been sentenced to 5 years in prison. Now, I'm grateful to the judge, the arson squad, and the financial crimes unit for all their hard work in securing this little bit of justice. That was a Herculean slog for the investigators to get it to that point at all, but this is hardly a definite end to this saga, and there are a few things that really need to be said in wake of this conviction.
The man who was arrested and now facing 5 years in the slammer is an associate of a well-known crime family in the area. His name is Tuffy, or Toofy, Goofy, whatever the fuck it is, however you say his name. He's 39 years old and they're describing it as a professional attack on a journalist. But don't worry, he's not a monster. He has a lot of remorse here. He feels really bad about it. He even made an apology video for it. So he is clearly feeling a lot of sorrow for his misdeeds, no doubt. In a video he sent from prison, he said, "I would just like to apologize from the bottom of my heart." Aww. Alright. Not guilty. Free this man. He clearly feels bad about firebombing two people's homes. He's no longer a threat. He's seen the error of his ways. That is a touching sentiment. He went on to say that he believed in God and said he was over his life of crime after spending so much of his 20s and 30s behind bars. Quote, "I'd rather die than return back to jail," he said. He's turning a new leaf. You can clearly see it here. I mean, it's just an honest mistake. Who hasn't accidentally firebombed two people's homes after being paid to throw those firebombs in the first place? It could happen to anybody. And this is a guy who clearly recognizes that these evil deeds are best left in the past. And it's crazy that he's only getting 5 years, by the way. He is a career criminal, and he's still getting 5 years after firebombing two people's homes, which is literally like attempted murder. At least it should be. That was the whole goal. At least one of the goals, either to have Friendly's fear for his life or take his life here in the firebombing attack. It's just crazy that he's only getting 5 years. Maybe that apology really did weigh heavy on the heart of the judge.
The person convicted of the firebombing is a man by the name of Toofy Jr. Tuisi Alua. I don't know if I'm saying that name correctly, and frankly, I don't care. I've never met Toofy Jr. I've never mentioned him in videos before. In fact, before he was charged, I'd never even heard of his name, nor do I hope to hear it ever again. It does, however, open a big question, a question which was not satisfactorily answered in court, and perhaps even more shamefully, not examined by most of the media. Why would a man with no connection to me whatsoever go to the effort of stealing a Mercedes, cloning number plates, surveilling my house, and then setting that house on fire?
As Friendly points out here, it's very interesting that the judge recognizes this as a professional attack, a coordinated attack here on Friendly. They even call him the Muscle. That's what he was hired to do. Yet, at no point do they try and inquire as to who hired him and why. What were his motives? Why would someone whom Jordy has never heard of, never mentioned at all, go through so much effort to firebomb his fucking house? That's awfully strange, right? Isn't that a little weird? They fully recognize that this was a paid, planned attack on Friendly yet don't bother to try and uncover who planned and paid for this attack. It wasn't just some random act of violence where this guy just had two firebombs sitting on his passenger seat from, last Halloween where he won his, the pyro from TF2 or something, and he decided, all right, I'll just throw these two firebombs over here. This was clearly a planned attack, and they recognize that, yet don't even give the slightest smidgen of effort to try and figure out who's behind it. That definitely smells a bit fishy.
I think I know the answer. I'd wager some prominent defamation lawyers, property developers, and politicians also know the answer. There were some unsurprisingly cowardly and oblique hints of an answer in the ABC article about the conviction, an article which refers to me as an internet personality. Mr. Shanks, who uses the moniker Friendly Geordies online, had mentioned the Alameddine crime network in a video 2 months before his home was set alight. Just mention the Alameddines. A lot of people mention the Alameddines, Anton. The Alameddine crime network might be one of the most prolific gangs in this nation's history. They're nightly news. Some people bank their entire journalistic careers on talking about the Alameddines. They don't get their houses burnt down. How characteristically low from the ABC, especially when even the judge labelled the firebombing as, quote, a professional attack on a journalist. Anton here acts as if it was a coincidence after reading out a BuzzFeed article on a stream.
I found this fascinating. What Geordies is mentioning here is that some journalists, like the one he's pointing out, are making the insinuation that because Geordies has mentioned the Alameddine crime family before, prior to his house being set ablaze, that maybe it's not a coinky-dink. Maybe the two are related. But Geordies hits him with the counterpoint here. He gets him with the Uno reverse with some very basic logic that the Alameddine crime family is one of the most infamous in the area, talked about daily as a piece of nightly news, where tons of journalists make their whole career solely around reporting on the Alameddine crime family, and yet none of them seem to be getting fucking napalm striked here like Geordies was. So it's a pretty weak insinuation to make that doesn't pass the smell test, especially because it's not like that's all Friendly Geordies talks about is the Alameddine crime family or anything like that.
This is not at all to excuse Toofy Jr. He tried to kill someone. He burnt down a house with no regard for not only the other potential occupants, but neighbours, which were the elderly, and for all he knew, could have been children. Even worse, because his motives are murky and seemingly transactional, he seems to have just been waved away with he was just the hired muscle. He tried to kill people. He burnt down a house. Things are a little bit scary in New South Wales if you ask me. At this point, you can order a firebombing, not only not get caught, but the muscle who does get caught gets about the same time as it takes to do a bachelor's degree.
The guy responsible for double-fisting firebombs that could have killed multiple people is getting an extremely light, soft sentence of just 5 years, which is basically just the amount of time between Stranger Things seasons. And not only is he getting a light sentence, but the people that hired him, that they openly are saying that he was the muscle, so they recognize he was the muscle for someone, but the people that he is the muscle for, they're not even bothering to try and investigate and find out the identity of. They're just like, oh yeah, he was the muscle, and that's it. That's as far as we're gonna go. It's just so blatant. It's so obvious. It's so fucked.
Pretty good risk to reward ratio, if you ask me. Over the past few years, I've faced multiple different criminal investigations and charges over what apparently in New South Wales is a far more serious crime, making YouTube videos. I don't think it's hyperbole to say that there were far more investigative and legal resources thrown at botched attempts to punish me than there were at punishing the firebombers.
If you followed Friendly Geordies at all for any length of time, you are probably familiar with the fucking ringer they have put this man through over the years. The justice system over there is trying so hard to bend them over their knee and spank his cheeks red every chance they get for even the slightest things. They will go to extremes for him, all because he posts videos online talking about corruption. Meanwhile, a firebomber who firebombed 2 houses, a career criminal as well, by the way, so he has a history too, gets significantly less resources put into that investigation. It's fucking crazy.
How can a man be charged and sentenced to 5 years in prison for a firebombing and the courts get to know nothing about his motives?
No, they know everything that needs to be known about his motive. He was hired to do it. He was the muscle. Hired by who? Cares. Who cares? They don't give a fuck. Just gonna send him to jail for just a little brief period of time here and just let this whole thing quietly die down so that way people don't ask too many questions about this whole firebombing, hoopla, that kind of thing. Because there's no need to dig any deeper on who might have paid for this kind of thing to happen. You know, it's just, he was the muscle. Come on, let's move on.
Why certain politicians like Rose Jackson, who originally condemned the firebombing, albeit in the most performative Twitter-approved template, that not only was mostly about her and how awesome she thinks she is, she also just had to add, right after I was nearly killed, that I'm, quote, way off and gross. I'll tell you what I think is way off, Rose. Hanging out with and propping up a development company which, again, shares the name of the video I was forced to remove due to death threats, and doing so knowingly. You know. That's what I think is gross, you self-aggrandizing transactional party machine cog.
Yeah, over there, Jordy's has got a lot of very powerful enemies. I've made a couple videos talking about Jordy's and everything that has gone on recently. It is not an overstatement to say that he literally does put his life on the line for the journalism that he does. And it's not just him, he does have a team as well that takes the same risk. They have some very powerful enemies over there. And it is very clear that they are willing to go to extreme lengths to silence Jordy's and his team. Keep in mind, the firebombing attack, they didn't know Jordy's wasn't home. They had no idea. They also didn't know about the neighbors' whereabouts if they were home. That very well could have ended with bodies, just corpses, charred corpses from this hired muscle coming out and firebombing these two houses, all to silence Jordy's and his team for their reporting on the blatant corruption over there.
Why do the Alamedanes, an organized crime gang, give so much access to certain ABC journalists? Why is the ABC so ardent in defending these certain journalists? And why isn't anyone able to get enough evidence to bring whoever ordered the firebombing into a courtroom? I tell you, there's some very strange things happening in New South Wales.
Very strange things indeed going on over there. I'm happy to at least see that someone was arrested in connection to the firebombing. That's good. 5 years is kind of laughable considering the crime. But I mean, I guess at least there was some semblance of, like, you know, catching the bad guys here to a certain extent. But there is a lot of work to be done. I feel like there was definitely a lot more that should have come from this. And hopefully it will. Hopefully there will be more that comes from this, God willing. Because holy shit, it is unhinged. Anyways, wishing the best for Friendly Jordy's here. Hopefully he and his team can stay safe. And just wanted to give you the update. That's about it. See ya. The best stories ever told are the ones that have the satisfying conclusion of the good guys winning in the end against evil, overcoming insurmountable odds to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat in a miraculous triumph. But we don't live in those stories, we live in cringe, so that's not always the case here in reality. And a haunting reminder of that fact is what just happened with Friendly Jordy's. Friendly Jordy's is an Australian YouTuber whom I've covered on the channel multiple times. I truly believe he is one of the best investigative journalists in the world, period. With no exaggeration, he risks his life to serve the community and inform them of corruption that it's gone unchecked, and his reward for this is his house being firebombed and his life being threatened multiple times. And these aren't the kind of death threats that you see all the time on Twitter where a 13-year-old anime fan gets upset if you say you don't like something about their favorite show. These are death threats from an organized group of criminals with a very scary history and a track record of already trying to murder Jordan Shanks, Friendly Jordy's. They fucking firebombed his house. Well, actually, they firebombed his neighbor's house because the absolute goobers got it wrong the first time and then came back to try and finish the job by firebombing his actual residence. So they have already tried to take his life before. That's some shit that you only see in, like, espionage, blockbuster Hollywood films, and yet Friendly Jordy's is living through it right now because New South Wales is so unbelievably corrupt that it's festering in the public eye. And yet the authorities that are supposed to protect and look out for the public safety are just closing their eyes and plugging their ears to all of this unfolding in front of them. It's despicable. It seems New South Wales is more corrupt than Gotham at this point. Friendly Jordy's yesterday posted a video where he had to publicly admit defeat at the hands of this corruption, unfortunately.
You might have noticed that we haven't been releasing videos after the police arrested a suspect for the firebombing of my house. While we're very grateful for their persistence throughout this ordeal, we felt it would be prudent to see what the response would be from certain individuals.
If you haven't kept up with the lore here, I'll give you the previously on Dragon Ball Z recap. They did finally make an arrest on one of the suspects responsible for the firebombing of his house. It took about a year, but better late than never. Rather be tardy to the party than not show up at all. At least it's seeming like crime won't pay. They won't get away with this, right? Wrong! Idiot! Stupid! Can you stop sipping on your moron potion for a second? Put the stupid juice down? Of course the criminals are gonna get away with it, because I guess that's just the way things go in New South Wales. At least when it comes to criminals of this caliber. the very powerful ones who are just seemingly above the law.
Their response has been one of rather perplexing confidence. Buoyed by the lack of further arrests, they have decided to be much more blunt with their requests, threatening anyone they believe had handed over information to assist with the creation of the video Coronation. This video detailed links former Deputy Premier John Barilaro had with development company Coronation Property. The video encompassed more than Coronation Property Associates. It included an array of spirited characters, many of whom were enraged with its release. Police have made it very clear that many of the prime suspects in the firebombing are in that video.
The video he's talking about here is a video Friendly Jordies and his team released called Coronation, and this shit was so hot it'd leave the toilet bowl steaming. It was massive. Friendly Jordies and his team released a firebomb of their own with this one here. Coronation highlights a lot of horrible things going on with a lot of very scary and powerful people doing bad shit. And they were not happy that this video got posted, and it put a target on Friendly Jordies' back. Really, it put the target right on his fucking forehead. Right on his noggin, because this was a big deal. It caused a lot of ripples, and it made him public enemy number one of this group of people.
Now, over a year later, these figures are once again venting, threatening dire consequences if the video isn't taken down. Given these people's colourful history, we don't consider these to be idle threats. Naturally, we contacted the appropriate authorities, but it appears these men have engulfed the state in a state of fear. It appears these men are indeed above the law. It appears these men are free to point the scythe at anyone they wish, blackmail them with the most heinous, violent acts imaginable, and there is not an authority in the land powerful enough, or perhaps foolhardy enough, to check them.
Just tragic. Where do you go when the authorities abandon you? What are you supposed to do when the people that are supposed to protect you refuse to, because the people that are coming after you are stronger than them, and out of their reach, just untouchable? What can you possibly do besides just comply?
But if the content of Coronation is to fall on willfully deaf ears, if its only tangible result is the death of innocent people, we will not have their lives hang on our conscience. In other words, you win. We're taking down the video. Congratulations, you run this city.
It's sad because it's such an important piece of investigative journalism, but it's also the only choice they could make in this situation. This isn't a group that's making idle threats. They have already firebombed twice, and they have a history of doing a lot more, as was highlighted by Jordies and his team. So they did the only thing they could when faced against this enemy. They just complied. They took down that video. Now, of course, since it's the internet, nothing's ever really gone forever in this cyberspace, except of course for all my old YouTube videos I deleted when I was a teenager because I was embarrassed of them and worried that the copyrighted music would cause a problem, so I deleted them in like 2012, and I desperately want those videos back, but they can't be reclaimed. Those are the only things in the entire documented history of the World Wide Web that are apparently just fucking poofed out of existence forever and can't be brought back. But aside from that, nothing else has ever really gone forever. There's always re-upload, there's always archives of it. So in this case, Coronation, the video that he had to take down, is re-uploaded 1,000 times already. So it's not like completely dead and buried or anything like that. And I saw a lot of people saying this could actually, start the Streisand effect here on this and have even more eyes on this group, which I guess is possible, but I think the big victory for them is that they've shown that they can kind of bully and strong-arm anyone with impunity. They can't be touched by authorities. They just have this green light to do whatever they want with no repercussions, so they're able to force Jordies to take down a video they didn't like. And they're just demonstrating that power here, and I think that's kind of what they were aiming to do, not so much shut down the information, because I'm sure they knew that this was just going to be re-uploaded, but it's just kind of letting Jordies and pretty much everyone else know that they can do what they want. And it's very fucking scary, just how powerful they are. Being a real investigative journalist has to be one of the most dangerous things you can do. I've mentioned this a few times before, but this isn't like the only example of this happening to an investigative journalist. It just happens to be one of the few times that happens to be a YouTuber as well, so more people are made aware of what's going on. One of the biggest ones that I always go to is the Panama Papers, if any of you remember that. The Panama Papers were a massive deal for about a day, and then collectively the whole world stopped talking about it mysteriously, even though the Panama Papers were quite alarming. And one of the lead investigative journalists behind the Panama Papers released was actually killed in a car bomb, and nobody ever talked about it.
I bet most of you didn't even know that. Anytime I bring that up, I'm met with question marks in my stream chat. Investigative journalism is a dangerous thing to get into. So I have nothing but the utmost respect for the ones that do take this on to try and help their community and keep everyone informed and safe and let everyone know what's going on so that way people can be more aware. So what Jordy's and his team do, I think is extremely important work, and they are very, very good at it. So it's just really upsetting to see them have to admit defeat at the hands of this corruption they've been fighting against. And it's downright shameful from the authorities in New South Wales for their refusal to do anything about this. But yeah, anyway, that's about it. See ya. It's no secret that journalism isn't as respected as it once was. It certainly doesn't have the pedigree that it used to. Most people find journalist to be synonymous with clown, and it's really not hard to see why in a lot of cases when even today you have major publications like the Wall Street Journal in particular, who I'm going to name and shame real quick, who are writing goofy dogshit articles that are just blatantly wrong and misleading about Sam Bankman-Fried. Sam Bankman-Fried was the head of FTX, the cryptocurrency empire with billions upon billions of dollars in it that collapsed overnight and is a blatant case of fraud. But for some reason, Wall Street Journal and other publications, but Wall Street Journal in particular, has been playing this game of hide Sam's cock in their mouth, and they've been writing articles like refusing to admit that it was fraud and making all kinds of weird excuses for it, like, oh, the reason FTX failed was actually because supporters lost confidence in Sam Bankman-Fried, or Sam Bankman-Fried was the world's most generous billionaire who had plans to save the world and now he can't since his empire collapsed. Playing the world's smallest violin for a fucking criminal, a fraud. It's so weird. And it's things like that that give journalism as a whole a very negative reputation. I know I've already spent quite a bit of time talking about this, but it's just infuriating. Oh, no, he's not a fraud. It's because he was too nice and too smart. We didn't see the vision, so it's actually our fault. You know, Sam Bankman-Fried's a goddamn angel. It's fucking sickening. And it leads to this stigma around journalism. But there are great journalists out there, and the one I want to talk about today is a journalist who is legitimately putting his life on the line in order to deliver extremely important stories to the public. And he's actually a YouTuber. His name is Friendly Jordies. He's a comedian who has, for the last couple of years, been very much delivering some of the hardest hitting journalism in all of Australia. And the price he's paid for this is a huge one. He's been threatened more times than Bugs Bunny by Elmer Fudd. He is constantly getting threats from powerful people. He's been sued. Even very recently, he was involved in a defamation case that resulted in Google, YouTube having to pay $715,000 over this defamation case. He was labeled racist or abusive for a series of videos he made talking about a person in power. He's done so many stories about corruption at even the highest level, and most recently, the scariest thing has happened to him. His life was put in jeopardy. His house was firebombed. He made a video going over the situation, but it's also been reported by so many Australian news outlets as well. The situation is as follows. His neighbor's house was firebombed on the 17th of November. It was luckily put out pretty quickly, and then shortly after that, his house was firebombed, and a lot of it was damaged, obviously. Now, this appears to be a deliberate attack. The fact that his neighbors got firebombed and then he did makes it seem like they originally went for him to begin with, but were too fucking stupid to figure out which one was his residence, so they gambled on a 50-50 and lost. Kind of like when you gamble on a fart and shit your pants, but then they came back and tried to finish the job. It's fucking terrifying stuff. I'm going to play you a bit of his interview with the media here when they were waiting for him outside of his house.
I would hope that the New South Wales strike force that is supposedly set up for fixated people and terrorists would be looking into this instead of a comedian and his team for 6 months straight at the whim of a previous premier that all of you defended for his last 10 years, and then when he came out, and even after all the New York stuff, you're still sitting there defending him now. I saw all of your articles today where you all wrote all of the same little narrative that you write every time. I would hope that you would put just as much attention on the fact that that happened as you have on trying to assassinate my character over the last year. Thanks for your time.
Did something happen here a week ago, Jordan?
Now, his real name is Jordan, and even in the face of his life being threatened, he still rolls up calm and collected like Kratos, keeping his slapping hand primed and ready for these media cheeks. And it's not like his anger is misplaced. He has had very less than favorable articles written about him with a lot of labels attached to that, which I don't think are deserved when the entire purpose of Jordy's content recently has been exposing corruption at the highest level, which is an extremely important thing to be doing, where I feel he should be rewarded instead of vilified. But, that's just me. I don't live in Australia here, but he has been treated very poorly by the people that are now standing outside of his home, showing no empathy at all. No sympathy at all, just trying to circle around like vultures on roadkill to get their scoop for their clicks. And he rightfully is upset at them and points out a bit of the hypocrisy surrounding it. I'd also like to add a bit of context surrounding Jordy's statement about the fixated people and terrorists statement he made in that clip. Well, it's because one of his producers was arrested by the unit that's supposed to be monitoring and stopping, like, terrorists, I guess. It's the Fixated Persons Unit. His producer was arrested for stalking. What a remarkable joke. It would almost be laughable if it wasn't so goddamn scary. He was arrested for stalking and intimidating when doing their reporting on the person that they were talking about. By the goddamn department that's supposed to be about, like, threats, like terrorist threats. Like, holy shit. That is mind-blowing. So Jordy's really does have every right to, of course, be upset. And obviously, after his house being firebombed like this, it's a fucking terrifying situation. He does very deep reporting. He exposes a lot of corruption, and I feel like he's probably one of the hardest-hitting journalists Australia has at the moment that I'm aware of. He's celebrated by a lot of Australians as well for all of his reporting, and now his life is in danger, and it's hard to say who's responsible for the attack. He mentions in the same clip that because he's been doing reporting on, a lot of corruption at a very high level, it's hard to say who actually may have carried out the attack.
Obviously, we've done some extremely dangerous reporting over the last year, I suppose, of a bunch of extremely powerful people and corporations. There is many people that would want to do that. I obviously can't say who I suspect it is, but I do have like a short list in my head of who I think would have done it.
What a fucking horrifying situation for anyone to be in, and yet somehow Jordy's maintains a very composed demeanor. He continues joking throughout the rest of the video, even joking about the situation, and somehow staying, like, calm and collected, which is fucking baffling. The man is just built different. He's got tungsten throughout his body. It's fucking wild. Now, it doesn't matter how you feel about political opinions or whatever. I think everyone should be able to agree that his house being firebombed is outrageous. That's a huge problem, and it should result in a very thorough investigation that leads to people being arrested for this act. I think everyone should agree with that. But yeah, I want to mention that Jordy's also does have a Patreon if you want to directly support his content beyond just watching the videos. I'll go ahead and link that in the description below. And yeah, I think this is just terrible that it happened, and hoping for his safety in the future, and hoping they catch whoever was responsible for the firebomb attack. That's about it. So yeah. A couple months ago, one of the best journalists on the planet, who also happens to be a YouTuber, got his house firebombed due to his investigations into a large network of corruption in Australia. I really do mean those words earnestly. Journalism is in such a poor spot right now. Modern journalism has about as much respect as the bronies did during the early 2010s. You remember that community of adults that used to jerk off to My Little Pony? In fact, I would argue that people have more respect for them than a lot of journalists these days, and rightfully so. It's an industry that thrives off of just feeding shit into the mouths of everyone that happens to come across their headlines. They're either writing meaningless articles, not focusing on anything important, writing blatant lies about shit, or just generating their own controversies to farm rage bait clicks from people just to drive traffic to their site. I'm sure you're tired of me whining about this one example I'm about to use because I've used it like 20 fucking times now, but I just think it's perfect to encapsulate what I'm talking about. There is an article Kotaku published proudly where it was all about the author mishearing a lyric in a Super Smash Bros. Song and thinking they heard a slur, so they wrote a whole article attacking Nintendo for it and demanding an apology and a response. Like, that is just the perfect example for what I'm talking about. I'm already getting lost in the sauce talking about this again and ranting. The reason I'm even mentioning it is because Friendly Jordies does real, meaningful journalism. One of the very few in the field that does. He's a political commentator, a YouTuber, and a comedian, and he combines all of these into extremely hard-hitting investigations into corruption in the government, and he presents all of the information factually, with sources, with evidence, and delivers it in extremely entertaining ways. So it's palatable to anyone, even if you're not in Australia, it gets you educated and it entertains you. It is just the perfect blend of everything you could ever want from a journalist, really. And for all of his hard work, his life gets threatened. He is doing all of this at great personal risk to his own safety. His fucking house got firebombed, and the list of suspects that it could be is super long. He came back recently after a 2-month break on YouTube to update everyone on what's going on with that whole situation, and he laid out the entire timeline of events for all of the enemies he's made that could have been responsible for this firebomb attack on his house. This attempt on his life could have been made by a lot of very powerful people that Jordies has exposed and dropped very important information on over the years, and I highly, highly recommend watching his entire video going over all of it. Of course, the link is going to be in the description below. I'd like to briefly give you a summation of some of the possible suspects here in this little murder mystery whodunit. He compared this whole situation to Knives Out, and he's absolutely right. This is a wild web of fucking supervillains that are after him, potentially. He's got like the entire fucking Naruto Akatsuki hunting him down. And by far the biggest clown, but also the biggest, most powerful person in that group is John Barilaro, the former Deputy Premier of New South Wales, whom has come after Jordies many times and even cites Jordies as the reason he stepped down from his position, the most powerful position in New South Wales, because of their YouTube beef and Jordies' content insulting him and exposing him. John Barilaro has some very scary connections that could have been used here that led to this whole situation, and Friendly Jordies does highlight all of these possibilities. But of course, he's far from the only one. Jordies has exposed corruption at every level, so the list of enemies is longer than the terms of service to signing up to iTunes. But I would like to highlight 2 others. One of them is an extremely powerful gambling company that Jordies has talked about and dropped very important information regarding. And another one is an organized crime ring. I'm not going to go too in-depth on those 2 yet. I highly recommend you watch Jordies' video talking about why these are very possible suspects in this firebombing on his residence. But I would like to show you a few clips from the video, mainly ones that are poking fun at John Barilaro, going over the history between the two, and just kind of pointing and laughing at this absolute goober. But it is a very serious situation, and somehow Jordies has unbreakable, indomitable spirit and will. Because even though his life has been threatened, and keep in mind, that firebombing, it was twice. At first, they firebombed his neighbor thinking it was his house, but when they realized it wasn't his house, they came back and fucking firebombed him again. So, his life, very real danger, and he still is making the decision to stay and fight against corruption. There is nothing more admirable or brave. Like, he is exactly what journalists should aspire to be. And he still somehow delivers content that is so entertaining and so good. I don't know how he does it without just like chewing on his fucking fingernails in fear every day. Absolute goddamn Australian hero.
In what I now know was a premeditated attack that at best was intended to terrify me and at worst was intended to kill me.
I would say it was probably intended to kill you. Like, throwing a firebomb at the house and actually setting the house on fire is less of like an intimidation tactic and more of an attempted murder, I would say. But I feel like in his position, he's got to be very careful with the words he chooses because he's constantly in the crosshairs of every single authority in Australia because he exposes so much corruption. But yeah, this is very much a step above an intimidation tactic. An intimidation tactic is if you had like someone come to your house dressed as a construction worker, but then it was actually a lawyer serving you like a fucking lawsuit. That's an intimidation tactic. This is some like hitman shit.
The night that happened, I was supposed to be sleeping here. I don't even have smoke alarms, so there's a very good chance that if I was, I could have ended up like the content you're watching right now. Fire, But I wasn't here because that week I was performing my live show in Melbourne and I forgot my keys while I was down there. So there, criminals outwitted. It reminds me of that quote.
He's
If we
2
don't
steps
know what we're
ahead.
doing, then the enemy certainly can't anticipate our future actions. So I was sleeping somewhere else that night.
That's such a beautiful line too. That's always the cliche on how they beat like an overpowered villain in an anime or some shit who can see into the future. We'll have no plan and we'll wing it. Unpredictability is our best friend.
Here, and it is too big of a jump to go from beating a cameraman in public to firebombing a house.
That is a big jump, but you're also giving him a lot of credit here with beating a cameraman. This cameraman is fending off this overgrown baby with ease. Like, this is pretty sad for John Barilaro here. It's like that, like an older brother putting their hand on the head of the younger brother as he's throwing punches that are missing. And he's holding like a 30-pound camera on his shoulder.
John Barilaro had this palatial multi-million-dollar estate that he Airbnb'd as a side hustle to his other gig, being the leader of a state. This is the dumbest thing you could do, right? Like, especially since the other half of the time, it's not Airbnb, that's where he lives. So we thought, wouldn't it be good if we film a video on the history of all the shitty things he's done, but film it at that Airbnb? Because as you've probably gathered, or haven't because you're that dumb, I'm filming at your estate. And I want you to be the first to know that I f***ed in both your guest houses. Oh, Stooge, we tracked the video. It's coming from inside the
I don't know if
house.
that's true or not, but that's such a fucking flex. This guy actually sounds unbelievably stupid. Like, legitimately, observably stupid. I am believing 100% that his feelings got hurt because Friendly Jordies made fun of him, and he probably cried. Like, he actually probably did cry and then resign. That's crazy. They came on his pillows. Yeah, maybe. I mean, again, I wasn't there to watch him have sex and pound cheeks at John Barilaro's Airbnb or anything. I'm just going to take his word for it. And even if he didn't, he planted the seed of doubt in his head forever now. The guy that makes fun of him also fucked in his beds. So either way, that's a W.
John was demanding the police conduct a bug sweep of the property. Something that would cost the taxpayers $10
And a blacklight,
Despite
please.
the fact we
We need to
paid
know if he
almost
actually
that
fucked
much
here.
to stay at the property. Just imagine how stupid and entitled it is to be deputy premier and lease one of your primary residences out to anyone. I never considered doing this before, but say a property developer wants a favor, they could very easily get material to blackmail you.
Hey, I want to pop in here real quick once again to drive home the absolute insanity of this situation. John Barilaro, the most powerful man in New South Wales, was listing his actual primary estate as an Airbnb when he wasn't staying there. That is levels of stupid that not even Saints Row was able to tickle. John Barilaro has the brain of a child still struggling to fit a square into a square hole. I don't know what could have even led to him believing that was a decent idea at all. Like, maybe it's 30, 40 years of eating paint chips and boofing asbestos. Like, I don't know. Like, how he could have thought in his position that listing his actual residency as an Airbnb was smart. As Jordy's does list, there was a lot worse shit that could have come from this. Shit could have been planted in his estate that would have got him in huge legal trouble, blackmail, it could have been bugged. Like, there was so much that could have happened here because he lists it as a fucking Airbnb. Honestly, John's lucky Jordy's was the one to do this because it could have been so much worse. He got off easy by the only thing scandalous happening in his estate was Jordy's slamming ham in his bed. Like, he could have found himself in much, much, much bigger trouble.
In another video, I called Barilaro up and attempted to ask him about allegations surrounding him and extramarital affairs. Turns out, John's intimate relationships would eventually come under scrutiny in a election hearing concerning his boss's intimate relationships, but that's a story for another day. I didn't know this at the time, but these videos caused John's office to contact the New South Wales Police Force just days after their release, specifically the Counter-Terrorism and Special Tactics Command.
God, what a flex. You grilled a man's cheeks so hard
that he called in the Counterterrorism and Special Tactics Command, fucking Jack Bauer, had to be put on your case because you bullied this guy's feelings so hard. Jesus Christ. Now I think he fucked someone that's not his wife. Now, I mean, I know nothing about him or the case, but now because he called in fucking CTU, the Counterterrorism Unit, now I think he absolutely cheated on his wife. He went too hard to prove he didn't. Now I feel like he's covering something up. You see, you gotta, there's a fine line between, like, a proper response and an overkill. And when you reach overkill, you're basically already guilty. Oh no, John.
The defamation lawyers draft up this absolutely
He's a prime
schizophrenic
messiah.
letter detailing all of John's grievances with the videos I made, including that I called him a greasy little scrotum. He needed
That
to
was
clear
too
the
far.
record on that one. Let everyone know that's not true. Go by, and they were pretty quiet. Unbeknownst
Seeing
to us,
insults
but of
in
course,
writing
hearing
on a
him
legal
be
document is
surveilling us
crazy.
On behalf of a guy that we exposed and made fun of.
Oh no.
So we've been served. And what they gave us, in my honest opinion, is another whiny crock of shit. That was.
Does
not
he
only
actually have to...
riddled with-
So he's been sued a million fucking times. Does he actually ever have to even defend himself, or does it get thrown out pretty quickly? Because this man has collected more lawsuits than I have Pokemon cards at this point. From the feelings he's hurt. Yeah, he's had to defend a few times. Okay. Because, like, I've seen the sheer number of them, and it is overwhelming. But I also know quite a few of them get thrown out. Like, even in the description of this one is being thrown out. So I was just wondering if he ever even had to actually go defend himself, or if they eventually just drop it.
Then on the 4th of June 2021, my producer Christo was walking back from uni.
Oh,
He was already
I know
planning
this
on
one.
meeting our lawyer Mark that day, so he had the document.
Yeah, this was a big clip when it came out.
They're giving away evidence and trying to run away with it. Yeah?
What's happening? They're just fighting him.
Run off with evidence. Okay? Who are you doing this? You're out with... Jesus Christ.
Film this. Make
What
sure
the
you don't film it. This is bizarre.
This is not Australia.
Yeah, it's Mark Davis.
Christo was arrested by the Terror Police, specifically the Fixated Persons Unit, charged with 4 counts of stalking and intimidation. So we're now facing criminal charges and a defamation suit.
The guy looks like he got... Well, I mean, in defense of John Barilaro, he literally did kind of get cucked by extension. Because this fucking idiot put his personal residence up as an Airbnb, so friendly Geordies went and had sex there. Like, his estate got cucked. So of course he's going to be sad forever. I'll briefly give a little context here. Geordie's producer got arrested on completely bogus dog shit by the goddamn fucking counter-terrorist unit, like super soldiers meant to actually go after like terrorists and shit, all over fucking hurt feelings, and Geordie's and his team exposing corruption. It's an absolute affront to God. It is just downright wrong and fucked up what happened to Geordie's, his team, and everyone involved here. And that clip you saw is only a brief section of that whole arrest, which was brutal. Like, they roughed him up for no reason. Like, all of it is just foul.
They end up withdrawing the application and paying both Christo and my legal costs of over $20,000.
Hey,
But Christo's
attaboy.
criminal charges still hang over him, and my defo case is still ongoing. During this time, Barilaro also decided to publicly announce his intention to resign from politics, basically saying, I forced him to resign.
The defamation case definitely playing a big part of this.
God, that's
I
so
don't know how
good.
many of you can endure what I've endured on online. I feel for young men and women, young boys and girls that get bullied on social media. I feel for them because as a
Bro, you are literally the most powerful person in the region, and you're crying about YouTubers making fun of you so much that you're quitting your job. That is the weakest, softest shit of all time. Actual 14-year-olds get bullied harder than you do, and you know what they do? Continue on and move forward.
You're the fucking most powerful politician in the region, and you curl up into the little fetal position suckling your thumb because a YouTuber called you a greasy scrotum. That is wild. That is fucking wild. Holy shit. You know what? I actually don't even think it's the mean words that Jordy says against him. I really think when Jordy's fucked at his house because this stupid idiot put his Airbnb or his actual home up for the Airbnb, I think that's what broke him. I think that, like, actually broke his whole soul. I think that was just, like, this big eureka moment where it's like, wow, I'm a fucking idiot. And he couldn't handle the realization. Like, the self-reflection was too much. Overwhelming.
So my legal team launches an application to strike out that claim, opposed again by Barilaro, who fights tooth and nail to keep that claim in and keep his special protections that prevent his own words from being examined in court. And guess what? We lose. The judge rules that it would be more unfair to deprive Barilaro of the right to vindicate his reputation.
What? What is that stance?
Than to make it impossible
It's just
for me
blatant
to
corruption.
defend myself. So I'm basically stuck in...
That needs to be highly scrutinized ASAP. That is so wild. Holy shit. Imagine still being bound by a 1700s ruling to protect a politician from saying something stupid in Parliament. He literally said he can defend himself, but not you. I know.
In late December of 2021, I released a video detailing that I had found an Ashley Madison account linked to John Barilaro's email address and personal details. You know the website that had the slogan,
"That's so good.
Life is short, have an affair." It was hacked a few years ago. I
Yes,
swear to God.
that was
as with
huge.
The rest of this argument, you couldn't make this up.
That I can't wait for the reveal, but I just have to once again chime on that. With that Ashley Madison hack, I don't know how many of you remember that. That caused like actual hysteria for maybe like a week. Like on Facebook, like the old gentlemen, they were breaking down like, how could this have happened? The internet is a secure place. My life is ruined. I can't believe it. Like absolutely having this nuclear meltdown because all of their shit was now exposed. It was amazing. It was fucking amazing. Ashley Madison was a place where married men went for cheating on their wife or something. That was the whole shtick. That was the whole basis of the site.
Him because when cameramen went to film him one night regarding this scandal, this happened.
I wonder if that was the woman he met on Ashley Madison or if it was his wife. There's really no telling. Oh, this is the cameraman.
It was a
Hey,
long
come on now.
and
Please. The cameraman wins this. John took the most damage. John was the one that hit the blast zone here. Cameraman's got 30 pounds of fucking iron on him. And he is still just manhandling John with one arm.
couldn't work for a while, so we're now using our legal fund to pay for a legal action against John Barilaro on behalf of the camera.
Let's go.
Just a quick
That's so
update.
good.
Days ago, John's charges were dropped on the grounds of mental health.
How? How is that an excuse? Wait, what? Does that work in Australia? So let's say assault and battery, whatever. Like you show evidence like, hey, this is really taking a toll on my mental health. Like I'm really stressed about this, and then be like, oh my god, we're so fucking sorry. Holy shit. Okay, we'll drop the case, please. Take all the time you need to recover from the mental burden of this whole ordeal. Oh my god, wow. Is that just like something you can actually do? Like obviously assault charges are going to be mentally draining, even to, well, especially to the super sensitive goofball Barilaro. But is that a real defense? Like, my mental health is suffering from this, please drop it. And they'll be like, oh, yes. Well, now that you've said that. It's like in Pirates of the Caribbean with parlay. If you shout parlay, they just have to stop everything. No, not a thing. He's just super corrupt. Okay, thank God. I'm happy to hear that. Well, I mean, I'm not happy to hear about the corruption, but I'm glad to hear this is like a real tactic you can employ.
Executive Director of large Sydney property development company Coronation Property Co. In August last year, we released an investigation into this developer, which detailed never before published links between them and one of the most violent crime organisations in all of Australian history, the Alameddine crime family, who are in no way suspects in the firebombing. No, not them. I'm sure they all have very credible alibis.
Wow, that's
we
terrifying.
revealed that Andy DeHaas, the now former enough for Clubs New South Wales to bring a private prosecution against Troy and I. So now I've made even more enemies. The gambling lobby and anyone that would use them to launder money. And Clubs New South Wales rejected him. By the way, this came out on the same day John was saying in court that he was too mentally ill to face his assault charges, but well enough to run Clubs New South Wales, one of the most scrutinised jobs in the country right now.
Well, the thing is, like, assault charges are a scary thing. That's like a mental ewy. Like, that's yucky. Like, that doesn't make me feel good. But being in charge of a massive gambling company, that's a yippee kind of feeling. Like, that's two very different sides of, like, the mental spectrum here. So I can totally understand him not wanting to go to court to face the assault charges. That is very stressful. This is pleasure. This is fun. So I get it. I get it, John.
To have me thrown in jail, the 7th richest man in Australia threatening to sue me, numerous other property developers and dodgy bears. I have a longer enemies list than Richard Nixon, so despite having my suspicions, I'm still not completely sure as to who done it. But enough of listing enemies, it's now time for my friends list. First of all, sorry to my neighbours and landlord, and future apology to whoever finds my corpse. It's going to be messy. I'm not going down without a fight. Big thank you, boy.
That's like actually fucking terrifying. Like, he's making light of it, but the enemies that he has listed here are actually fucking horrifying. Like, I can't believe he's still staying in Australia, honestly. I really can't. So, for those that don't remember the situation, I'll quickly let you know. His house got firebombed, but it was actually the second attempt. So they initially firebombed his fucking neighbors, thinking it was his house. And then when they realized it wasn't his house that they fucking firebombed, they came back to try and finish the job. And like he mentioned, the house didn't even have smoke alarms, so like he literally probably would have just died if he was actually home at the time. Because it would have been when he was asleep. And the enemies he's listed here and their connections are very serious. I don't know how he's sitting here and being like okay about it and lucid. What a man's man. The problem as well is people who hear real journalism but don't like the message and reject it. See, like, I don't really subscribe to that belief, because if you look at some of, like, the real journalists that do great work like Jordy's, they are very well received by actual people, not politicians and not the elite. Like, that's how you know it's the sign of, like, good journalism. I never really see pushback when you're met with, like, a real journalist.